Let's continue to watch how Pyo Wol's journey to become the strongest person in Sichuan City goes. It took a few days for the subordinates of the ignoble clan to grasp the chaotic situation they had just experienced. In the capital after Pyo Wol caused chaos, Hong Yu-shin felt quite a headache as he kept running after that mysterious and somewhat strange man. Not only the head of the ignoble clan in the city but perhaps everyone who knew the news about the seven-star hall was completely dead and no one was surprised. He quietly looked at the group of corpses that were not intact but had been sewn together to bury the victims. Escaped quickly. It's unbelievable that in just one night, all 7 of these martial artists were beaten to death. Hong Yu-shin understood that the Seven-Star Hall is a famous sect in Hunan and there must be a reason that's why they're so famous. If we hadn't witnessed them, we wouldn't believe that they would be executed so quickly. No matter how strong that person's martial arts skills must be, no matter how strong they are. Wherever we go, there must at least be a limit. Master Fan Dao muttered to himself, perhaps a new disaster is about to strike this capital. So this person asked his servants to stop. Quickly analyze the body, then learn about the perpetrator's martial arts. Then he asked where Pyo Wol is now. We also know that besides fishing, we can only go to the smithy. The person under our command also told us in great detail that that place is owned by a descendant of the Tang clan. Let's find out about the relationship between them and don't miss any clues. Although we can't control him, we can still find out information to earn more money. Speaking of the male lead, right now after unsuccessfully fighting with the Wind Sovereign, he returned to his junior brother's place. Deng Sochu also heard that Pyo Wol could not keep the child and that the Wind Sovereign took him away for protection purposes. Looking at his appearance at that time, it seemed like he wasn't lying. His eyes looked very confident when he assessed that mysterious expert. Junior brother didn't know what to do either. More because from last night until now everything has been in chaos. The Seven-Star Hall group has led a fire to burn down a third of the slums, making the capital increasingly insecure and everyone is worried. Also worried. Unexpectedly, they did that just because of that child. After all, what secret does he carry that he is noticed by important people? According to Pyo Wol, before leaving, the other person introduced himself as the Wind Sovereign. Speaking of this name, the male lead's eyes also saw the high possibility that his junior brother knew something more. What appeared on his face was not just curiosity because there was so little information. About the gypsies and the knowledge is limited to Sichuan City and is even fragmentary. Because he was too engrossed in focusing on answering questions. Enemies of Na Mai and Ching Cheng sect, but everything is over, so now is probably the time to find out. According to Deng Sochu, there is no one who does not know that name. That person is the one who has enough strength comparable to the person in power of top 2, trio sects, trio manors, 3 rollers, and even children know about him. All those forces. The male lead doesn't understand anything, so he demands to be treated. Fuang has to say it in more detail. Deng Sochu doesn't know where to start, but maybe he will say it according to his own understanding. The top 2 are considered the 2 strongest sects in the world. Although the existence of these 2 forces is less than 100 years, their masters both have extremely great achievements, so from then on people respect them as the 2 strongest sects in the world. Ho! According to the opinion, junior brother said that the other 2 sects are Berserk Martial Sect and the Heavenly Martial Manor. Among them, Berserk Martial Sect is the sect founded by Li Gwak Dai Hu. He is the person who ended the Great Demonic War. Thanks to this person's aura, that sect rose to the ranks of the strongest. Currently the master sect of Berserk Martial Sect is assumed by Li Chung, son of Li Gwak. The second sect, the Heavenly Martial Manor, was founded by Zhang Chunhua Dai Hu and was also the person who killed the celestial demon troop leader. Thanks to his financial ability and wealth, the Heavenly Martial Manor attracted many people, joined, and became an extremely powerful force. After these 2 class sects, the next 3 sects include the Shaolin Temple, the Wudang, the Mount Hua sect. Talking about 3 pages, as the name suggests, describes 3 manors. It includes the Divine Moon Manor, the Phantom Sword, the Rain Sword Manor. Although their history of existence is short, people are rumored to have great power. Now it is extremely hidden and terrible. Speaking of 3 factions, there are the Dragon Heaven Gorge, the Martial Sword Troop, the Water Heaven Society, and there will be other factions, but after the Great Demonic War, there are only these 3 factions left. In that way, 11 forces have maintaining a fragile balance of power to protect the peace of the Wanderers. Not only the 11 sects, but there are also individuals with no less power called the 8 stars, including 3 sovereign includes the Wind Sovereign that the male protagonist has met, in addition to the Sword Sovereign, the Martial Sovereign, and the rest Dang Sochu does not know. If based on his words and understanding, then there are at least 20 more people who are as strong as the Wind Sovereign. People often say that there are as many masters in the world as there are grains of sand, so there are even more unknown martial artists. In fact, this is the first time Pyo Wol realized how vast this world is. He himself considered himself like a frog sitting at the bottom of a well inside. Meeting with one of the powerful people, that Supreme Being has awakened the will of the male protagonist to understand that the Wanderer is not a safe place. Today you may be lucky to survive, but tomorrow you may become a cold corpse like the martial artists of the 7-star hall, so the male protagonist thinks he must find that kid Nam Shin Woo. It seems Dang Sochu thinks differently, and it is completely opposite to what Pyo Wol calculated. He appeared more thoughtful and tried to put himself in the other child's position. Because in his image there was also his image, so he probably wouldn't belong here. Maybe it would be better for the Wind Sovereign to take it away. Dang Sochu made a more emotional expression than he thought, then apologized to Pyo Wol for causing a lot of trouble. No, anyway, thanks to that, I gained a lot of experience. The fact that the boy was lost to the Wind Sovereign was a shock to the male lead. It felt like something was taken away from him. Was more terrible than he thought. Whether it was tangible or invisible, it didn't matter. After successfully taking revenge, the male protagonist's heart relaxed a bit. But now it's tightening again. Pyo Wol can't ignore the smallest things and needs to solve all of those problems to be able to rest assured. First you need to find a way to escape the problem. Although ignoble clan's followers can confidently hide, this is not a good way. The best thing is probably to hide their identity and capture information from afar. Maybe renting a house all the time, even though it's convenient, every action is captured. The male lead still can't do anything at this point. So the place he's heading to next is Azure Wind Manor. Everything has changed so much that only the smell of mold and ruins remains after Blood Shadow Group Captain's glorious past. The male protagonist traveled for 3 days and 3 nights and also had a clear purpose. Surely, when he was still alive, the group leader was also a person with a lot of wealth and many important family secrets. Just like that, the male lead went straight to the old male headquarters of the Blood Shadow Group Captain. A long time has passed, but perhaps the male lead still remembers that time very clearly. Because this place was deserted after being devastated by Russia, there were no longer any signs or presence of anything live. In a small moment, something very special appeared in Pyo Wol's mind. Fate pushed him to become one of the most terrifying assassins in the history of Sichuan. That doesn't mean there won't be any beautiful prospects. Because after all the kidnapped people are innocent children. They were drawn in by fate. After that, you have to work hard to survive and enjoy the peaceful days at Azure Wind Manor before dying. 7 years is the time to exchange for those peaceful and happy things. The intrigues and calculations would probably never be present in their minds if they were not kidnapped. Many people will return to their families, and there are those who will wander the world everywhere to feel the beauty of this world. And most of all, Pyo Wol is luckier than all the dozens of other children. Perhaps how much he would wish if those friends were still alive. Previously, the male lead had only come to this place once, and that was when he couldn't see the scene outside because he was blindfolded on a horse-drawn carriage. Now it's like a job searching for an oasis in the desert. It's unclear what the male protagonist will find in Azure Wind Manor. If you want to know, please press the register button to follow us. The outside of this manor is not as desolate as the inside. Every door, furniture is broken, and anything of value has been taken or completely disappeared. Blood Shadow Group Captain, after being murdered by Na Mi and destroying the area, had no one left to take care of him, and the male protagonist is sure that what he wants now is still there. Even though his appearance has changed, he still has remembered the Blood Shadow Group Captain's territory. The group leader led him into it, creating a huge, magnificent building, and deep inside was his study. There were no interesting items. And valuable items were left behind, but Pyo Wol didn't pay any attention to those assets. Because the male lead also didn't care about the things that were left behind. The thieves were definitely as something that can be easily seen everywhere. The male lead looked at the table and old beds, then turned his eyes to the ceiling. He had put himself in a position the captain's mind then thought for a long time. After seeing some special details on the ceiling, he flew up to check. Sure enough, there was also a small gap on the roof. Very suitable for hiding things. Because it is a place that people will not think easily even though it is right in sight. In that darkness there is no need for any light. The male protagonist also could see the small box. He gently opened it and there was also a book in his hand. The scene was transferred to a rich subdivision in Sishan City. Despite the scale it's not very big, but this place is the headquarters of a wealthy merchant thanks to his good management skills. There was a time when they had to worry about going bankrupt due to lack of money, but suddenly development boomed. At least this dwarf was treated like a king. Zhou Qiang is always happy because every night he visits the brothel to please the prostitutes here. The guy initially entered the room with a smile but suddenly frowned. Because now there was no woman but only a mysterious man sitting on the chair. Voice he unconsciously asked who that person was and received an angry voice. So the scared dwarf proactively walked quickly to run away. He made a worried and nervous expression. Try to speak louder to alert the people outside. However, the male lead gently reminded that no one will come to save you. Right when he finished saying that sentence, the light Zhou Qiang's eyes were also rolling around the room. Blood also began to flow from the bodies of the martial artists who were guarding. Apparently all of them who were hanging upside down on the ceiling had died. No longer alive. Lately your family has become a lot richer from illegal activities, right? He became more thoughtful and also remembered a name that very few people or no one knew. I want to mention Pyo Wol. The man sitting on the chair looked down at him without saying a word, just like an answer that he was that person. Even though his face was blurred, covered by the night, but with those two characteristic pupils, Zhou Qiang also understood. He quickly knelt down and mumbled many words. Please forgive me for not welcoming you properly. Why? He appeared again because he has not been present here for the past 7 years. I always remember your grace in helping me during the time of hunger and cold and now I will give all I have. I hope you will accept it. A long time ago, his company was about to go bankrupt due to lack of capital, but on one particular occasion, the male protagonist appeared and gave a large amount of money to help their business. So from that point on, Zhou Qiang tried to upgrade his facility and had to hand over a portion of the profits earned and pay each year to the male lead. One day he was neither beautiful nor happy. Did not agree with this and went into hiding without paying according to the agreement. However, that is just a thing in the past and now the male lead is no longer present. Perhaps this appearance is a sign and a choice for him to see which is heavier between death and life. If Pyo Wol comes back, Zhou Qiang's old agreement will have to be fulfilled. Holding a bundle with money in hand, he understood that the dwarf had most likely scattered his assets everywhere to prevent being robbed. So there will be many places the male protagonist needs to visit and next time he will definitely be it's going to be very busy. Right now, at the edge of Sishan City, Li Soha and the invisible monk are continuing their journey. On the way, they also learned that the 7-star hall had been destroyed. Yu Xinpeng feels very regretful because he should have stopped it from the beginning. This is not his uncle's fault. The 7-star hall is not an ordinary opponent that can attack. No plan. No matter what anyone says, I still admire your chivalry and know clearly that you are a bright and righteous person. No matter how you think about it, the fact that the sect with only 7 people is no longer present on the martial arts map is a very big event. The shadow monk is the one who knows it best, so he determined to stay here with the believers, to find the assassin because he was worried that he would harm the gypsies. Of course, if you do this, you will encounter many uncertainties and dangers, so Yu Xinpeng reminded your niece to go back. Although the child was very dissatisfied, the shadow monk's face was quite serious. Don't be stubborn anymore because of his name. That person is a very dangerous person. If you are affected, how can I look at my sister's face? Li Soha didn't know what to say, so she agreed. Come back quickly and admit it. I'm sorry for not being able to keep my promise to take you traveling around the world. Next time I'll go with my uncle. I'll go home now, but I'll definitely come back later. If it's normal, then it's okay. The monk will always agree with what Lee Soho wants, but in this world he will always refuse. That is also clearly shown on his face. There is no room for compromise, and the niece had to pack up and go home. Appearance, attitude and position are extremely important and are not something anyone can have, so she also respected her uncle's decision. The two finally broke up at a time when their wandering plans were still very much unfinished. At the same time, at a small branch of the Minor Thunder Temple. The scenery here was really real. The place is quite desolate because no one comes around much and cleans it up. The atmosphere is gloomy and idyllic because it is hidden very deep in the mountains adjacent to Sichuan City. A few lucky disciples lucky to have survived the Great War of the Qing Cheng sect is also tired of going too. Minor Thunder Temple has been destroyed, and now the only place to take shelter is probably this place. Dozens of martial artists above rolled up the mourning cloth and carried the coffin forward. As soon as they stood in front of the main gate, everyone stopped. Then they put the coffins down, and inside was the cold body of Sect Master Thunder and Minor Sect Master. A disciple hastily knelt down and screamed, calling the name of the Dharma sect in considering worldly matters of life and death. The foolish disciple is incapable of enduring this situation, hoping for you to relieve his resentment. One by one, people who were neither monks nor ordinary people came forward with dumbfounded faces. Faced with this noisy situation, the leader also came forward but always held the chain firmly in his hand. Round. Aren't you the disciple sent to that city of Sichuan? The disciple received an order from the cleared former elder monk to enter the wandering world, sir. What are you doing back here? The previous generation's Dharma sect clearly ordered to build a base in Sichuan City. Speaking of that, I understood what he meant and asked the following people to completely open the coffin lid. As he did so, he kept muttering, asking you to look into it. Minor Thunder disciples. The temple lost its master and sub-sect master due to the Qing Cheng sect and was chased away like dogs that wouldn't let go. Listening to the song Dharma sect, Minor Thunder Temple's face was angry when he heard the name Qing Cheng sect. Anger within his heart was on fire and he couldn't control it. How miserable they dared to touch the Minor Thunder Temple. They can't let it go like this. The Minor Thunder Temple disciples are also scared of them. Never faced someone so strong. Blood Buddha has thought of a very effective name right now, which is Hu Cam. This time I will order that guy to handle Qingcheng's matter. Sect. Compared to his dignified appearance, Blood Buddha's inner nature is also quite dangerous. His mouth continuously gritted his teeth, mumbling the words Qing Cheng sect, and just wanted to destroy it. Kill them. Time passed and the weather in Sichuan was initially not too cold and wintry because of the terrain of the basin surrounded by high mountains. There was a sudden heavy snowfall, and the harsh cold lasted throughout the winter. As a result, all roads leading outside were blocked and people in Sichuan had to be quarantined for several months. In the end, they had no choice but to live in isolation and wait until spring. Not long after spring came, the road leading outside was opened. Thousands of people from outside came, of course, to the first place they visited. Looking there is the central capital of Sichuan. There were smiles on the lips of the merchants who often traveled to this place. Those who had to live in exile in the middle of winter could not be satisfied with those who came from outside the capital. During the time of taking refuge and enduring the shadowless winter, the monk was also having a headache. He wondered why he couldn't even find the killer. Could it be that he left the city after that day? Otherwise, how could it be so quiet? Maybe Yu Xin Peng won't be able to detect the male protagonist still wandering around the central area. On the way to find out the clues, the invisible monk also encountered a carriage coming back. His position. The carriage looked very familiar and it seemed like he knew where it was going. Before he could see his face, Li Soha's voice rang out. It turned out later, 1 year after returning home, she came back because she couldn't stand the urge to explore further in her heart. She got out of the car and rushed to hug her uncle like she was her father. The invisible monk's eyes widened in surprise, wondering why he was here. The uncle still hadn't returned, so I came to look for him, but luckily he was still safe. He was quite worried because the snow was still there. It hadn't completely melted yet and the road was very dangerous, but he also said that he was going with his friend. Mentioning that person, the other woman took the initiative to get out of the car and say hello. From the outside, it looked like the same age as Lee Soha and she is illusion sword fairy 1Ga Young. This person is the true disciple of the sword sovereign Han Yu Qian, famous in the world. We have known each other for a long time and this was the first time we went together for such a long distance. Knowing that his best friend also had something to do with Sichuan City, he took the initiative to go along because she also had her own business to do. According to the woman, she told the shadow monk that she would go to the Golden Heaven. Yu Xinpeng understood that if this event took place, many young talents would appear here. Not all but just one among the people in our group. We almost couldn't go out to eat with the medicine supplement. All of their stories were heard by the male lead because he was disguised as a beggar. A moment later, the two women arrived at the Golden Heavens headquarters where many young martial arts talents were present. Zimin Pyong was making half a liter of wine when he saw the beauties also interested in greeting. This guy's face is quite young and innocent, but people give him the title Little Fist King. I see that your family is still wandering freely like before. It seems like you have come here a long time ago and met them. Right? The prostitutes here are not the same as other places, after all. I have slept with many of them. Ignoring the nonsense about boys and girls, Lee Soha raised her voice and asked who was left. Where are you now? It seems like there are still a few people left, so two men walked in outside. Zimin Pyong sat cross-legged on the chair, giving instructions. He must have been really scared when he mentioned it. He was there. People walking behind the eyes and nose looking bewildered because it was too strange was White Moon Sword Nung So Woon. The teenager walking in front with a strong face and a confident expression was Golden Heaven Society leader Kim Jiam Woo. Seeing his companions, the monk's nose said loudly in greeting. The meeting of these young people must have been for some reason related to the tragic incident in Sichuan. The guild master was having fun when I asked about my health. Suddenly, like a martial artist, I realized something dangerous. In response to one Gay Young's question, this person also said that someone was following us. Yes. Zimin Pyong thinks differently. He thinks those women are just admiring his handsomeness. That skeptical expression changed into an expression of pain and suffering in an instant. Changing a martial artist to reveal an opening from behind is also betting one's life on the enemy's hands. And that's true at this moment because something cold and painful is spreading throughout Zimin Pyong's body. The details are unclear, but it can be seen that the stubborn walls have been broken down. Created a large hole. From that pink hole, the small body of Zimin Pyong, known as Little Fist King, was knocked out. The male lead came out and he probably wouldn't hold back because of his attitude. He's too rude. Perhaps Pyo Wol has realized that if he lets this guy show off his wild nature, his business will be ruined. Because of that, we need to make him know what a festival is. Pyo Wol stomped on Zimin Pyong's bloody wound, causing the boy to unconsciously cry out. I haven't even used the ultimate technique yet. Overpowered by him, after Qing Cheng sect and Ma sect disappeared. Are there still such experts here? After torturing him for a while, the male protagonist remained silent and waited to see if the other person would repent or not. No. In response to his brother's attitude, he only grimaced and asked who he really was. Did you forget that I said before that I don't need to know? As soon as I said it, it was all a set of familiar weapons are creeping up all over his body. Wherever each fiber of the soul goes, the pain lasts. If Pyo Wol had exerted a little more internal force, he would have surely that small body would also become hundreds of piles of scraps of meat. However, this place is a sacred place, so it is also a place of business and he reminded his subordinates to quickly clean it up to receive guests. Perhaps this shock will also make it difficult for Little Fist King to describe in words because his body is now very damaged. After that, the male lead returned to Su Yang's familiar place and the two worked hard until morning. Even though she was just a prostitute, her caressing skills were very good so she was always loved by Pyo Wol. Just if you take off that mask, not only Su Yang but also normal women will go crazy. Last night's incident is not small, thank you for saving my life. However, Little Fist King will if you don't come to Chengdu alone. I'm worried that his friends will come and bother you. Speaking of friends, the male protagonist also knows that Zimin Pyong is a member of the Golden Heaven. That's why he doesn't. I can't sit still and wait for them to come up with a plan to disrupt my temple. As soon as he got up from the bed, Pyo Wol told Suyong to prepare meat and wine to receive guests. It's true. So because now Won Jie-young, after knowing about Zimin Pyong's condition, also went to the temple. Before going inside, she reminded the manager that she was a friend of the rogue guest last night. Sorry, but can I say hello to the owner of this place? After that, from General Manager Pyo Wol's words, she also agreed to meet this person. When she stood right in front of the study door, a voice rang out asking her to come in. Won Jie-young felt very strange. Because I haven't made any moves yet, the other person already knows. It's nothing important, so I have to gently open the door to say hello. Won Jie-young felt very surprised and expressed stupid enough to show his excitement when contemplating the appearance of the owner of the Divine Incense Pavilion. In a room filled with such a cold atmosphere that it gives goosebumps, and many people will imagine coming out in many different ways. Won Jie-young felt the aura just like a big, ferocious snake, but she also had to calm down and ask if that person was really the owner of the Divine Incense Pavilion or not. Perhaps Illusion Sword Fairy felt that the snake looked disgusting, but the more she looked at it, the more she saw that it was deadly beautiful. Of course, those thoughts immediately disappeared after the male protagonist asked to sit down. Before the other person could speak, he said that Suyong is the real owner of this place. My job is just to help run this place for a while. So that's it. I would like to introduce myself as Illusion Sword Fairy. I don't know if you've heard of it before. Being an honest and gentle person, Pyo Wol frankly said that he doesn't know. Looks like I have to try. Moreover, I thought I was already very famous in the world, but my fame still hasn't spread to this place. As she said that, she wondered if that person had ever left Sichuan or not. Yet, obviously this is a master compared to Zimin Pyong's case. This case is nothing. Unexpectedly, from that terrible incident, Chengdu continues to appear high-class martial artists. Pyo Wol couldn't be captivated by her beauty, that charm couldn't warm the frozen heart outside in the snow. Won Jie-young felt the atmosphere was quite oppressive, so she asked for his real name. The male lead frowned a bit because he couldn't reveal his identity. Previously, Suyong was often called Night Master, so he took that name. That means the Master of the Night. Is it dark? That sounds really weird, but I didn't come here just because of that scoundrel. Won Jie-young crossed her arms and looked straight at Pyo Wol and said that she wanted to ask a few things. You're the one who caused the disaster. Is the disaster at Sichuan Castle last year true? Why did you come to me and want to know about that? I just have something I'm curious to know and can only say it when I meet that person. If you're not that person, then there's even less reason to. Nothing important, so Pyo Wol thought the meeting would end here. He became silent and proactively reminded that everything would have to end. Won Jie-young understood that and also wanted to have a date in the future. Reunion. The name Qing Cheng comes from the mountain peaks that grow close to each other and are often reminiscent of extremely sturdy city walls. Qing Cheng Mountain still stands there with an unchanged silhouette. However, a sect named after the mountain now has many changes. The door of the head sect's study was now pushed open after hearing the voice of a disciple with an urgent appearance. While talking with his disciple, Mu Ryong also had to stay silent to see what was really going on. In contrast to his disciple's expression, he was very calm and asked for details. There were no words coming out of his mouth, just a few stuttered sentences with a panicked attitude. Then his voice became clearer. ThunderClan people were coming in large numbers outside. The incident of Elder Qing Cheng killing the master of the ThunderClan happened a long time ago, but no one can forget it. Maybe they think that since he's dead, there's no need for anyone else to take responsibility. Here. A moment later, the sect leader along with the elders went outside, where Thunder Clan disciples were gathered in large numbers. Hello sect leader, this is O Kyung Hwa, ThunderClan's new sect master. Immeasurable Buddha's life, poor monk is the sect leader of Qing Cheng sect. Faced with a confident face, suddenly the Thunder Clan master's attitude was somewhat apprehensive. Actually, he was afraid of Hu Gam's oppression, not the power of Qing Cheng sect. A few days ago, he secretly said that 3 days later he would go to Qingcheng Mountain, but now he still hasn't seen anyone. So that's why Oh Kyung-hwa was so worried that he showed a puzzled expression, surprising the Qingcheng people. And so he tried to put all the pain and loss into the next sentences. His mouth also started head shaking and asserting himself as the new sect master. I am the leader of the Thunder Clan and now want to ask the Qingcheng sect to take responsibility for the death of the former sect master. The person who should be responsible, your responsibility has already disappeared from your mind, so why do you still come here to say such dirty words? Ignoring the elder's cruel words, the head of the sect asked if you want your family to be responsible. Our sect has lost a leader, so we want Qingcheng to pay the price with a figure with an equivalent position. That speech is the reason and also the confirmation for the Oh Kyung-hwa wants the head disciple Qingcheng to kill himself. This incident has never happened before and in fact Mu Ryong has nothing to do with it, but now he is responsible. The remaining Qingcheng disciples also went crazy when they heard the Thunder Clan's impossible to follow request. Why do you dare to be so disrespectful to the sect leader and talk nonsense like that? Thunder is the clan all these kind of nonsense people? Hearing these words, Oh Kyung-hwa was scared and worried because he was originally not talented at all. Then he told me that if he came to Qingcheng, there would be chaos. Is the rest still not resolved? While thinking that, suddenly a person in the crowd also raised his hand to ask for advice. Hello, this is Li Pyong, the master of High Heaven Martial Academy. After speaking, with an arrogant look on his face, he went straight to the head of the sect Qingcheng. It seemed like the two knew each other, so Mu Ryong was not much of a stranger. However, I wonder why the owner of the restaurant came here, and at this moment it is really embarrassing. Our Qingcheng sect has been on friendly terms with other sects for more than 100 years, even though we have made such mistakes. Then it's impossible to be given such an unreasonable request. High Heaven Martial Academy's master didn't think about it at all because he was now on the Thunder Clan's side. In my opinion, Thunder Clan's request is very suitable, Chief. Mu Ryong feels too scared because there is a lot of pressure coming from all sides. True's gang leader doesn't stop there. The martial sect also coughed a few times to walk forward. As he walked, he introduced himself as the gang leader in a very eerie silence. His attitude was even more tense than the High Heaven Martial Academy's leader at the time. First, I myself also agree with the words of great hero Li Pyong. Therefore, the head of the Qingcheng sect, please take responsibility by killing yourself. Mu Ryong's complexion white and erase wrinkles due to age, because in this unexpected situation, who will be his lifeline? If you want to know, please press the subscribe button and follow us. Hong Yu-shin wanted to continue enjoying the feeling he had not had for a long time, but reality did not allow him to rest. After receiving news from his subordinates that the village outside Chengdu was being destroyed, he had to go check directly. All the buildings almost collapsed and countless bodies were scattered in front of them. It could be predicted that those corpses belonged to innocent villagers, but it was unclear cause. Hong Yu-shin was really shocked as he didn't understand what had happened. According to his subordinates, he only received the news early this morning. Number of deaths in the village, there were no signs of survival. To be sure, Hong Yu-shin had to search every body, but what his subordinates said was correct. He did not dare to determine who the culprit was, just look at the corpses. Have the followers of the ignoble clan been tracked down? Although we have worked hard, up to now there are no clues. One person shook his head like this, surely our ignoble clan has found the culprit? Murder. What do you mean? Look at every wound on the victims' bodies, Hong Yu-shin frowned. His subordinates must also pay closer attention to the bodies lying like straw. Each person has a very primitive weapon in their hand. The scars clearly show that they are in conflict with each other. The meat cleaver, firewood hammer or rake are stained with blood if you look at it. It's not difficult to guess at a glance. In the end, the village chief concluded that the villagers had killed each other. For some reason, they did that, making things even more confusing. Hong Yu-shin himself also found out because before the people lived very affectionately and never had even the slightest conflict. Back to things were even worse in Qingcheng sect when they were about to attacked by the sect masters under the mountain. With the support of the masters of two famous sects in Sichuan City, Thunder Clan's opinion seems to increase its strength. But it is still not enough to overcome the obstacle. The towering walls of Cheng sect. One by one, each psychologically manipulated sect master urged the sect leader to kill himself with a sword to pay their blood debt. True Man Mu Ryong looked straight at the eyes of the sect masters, seemed to have sensed the malevolent aura that lay within. The real Wu Hua came to whisper into his brother's ear because this situation was so strange. Their condition was very strange. It seemed like they were no longer conscious. The expressions of the two Cheng sect people also became serious. The sect leader has something to tell you. Suddenly there was a martial artist cautiously approaching the back of the true Mu Ryong. Chung Kyung, the first disciple of the Cheng sect, weaved through the crowd and approached the sect leader. The true Mu Ryong's vision was still firmly fixed on the disciples of the Thunder Clan and Li Piang, so he didn't pay too much attention. He turned around to see if the disciples in the sect had any good ideas, but only saw that guy's body trembling continuously. The drool on his mouth was clearly damp. Damp, and right under the sleeve appeared a small dagger. Chung Kyung did not hesitate and used a secret stab to plot to assassinate the sect leader. Pain suddenly appeared on his side. A dagger about the length of an adult's finger was pinned to one side, causing blood to splatter. True Mu Ryong's eyes widened as if he couldn't believe what was happening before his eyes. Himself, he unconsciously fell to the ground, breathing heavily. The first-generation disciple was so miserable that as soon as he made his move he immediately jumped towards the group of Thunder Clan. Seeing senior brother, he couldn't hold back. Blood! Real Wu Hua screamed in worry, trying to use his eyes to ask for help from his disciples. In this world, the crime of a master destroying an ancestor is too great to be tolerated. An old sect like the Cheng sect already broken, now this is really pitiful. Chung Kyung's voice at this moment is exactly like a person without emotions. If he did wrong, he must pay a very appropriate price. Right at that moment, from behind the real Wu Hua, there were also a few disciples who pulled out the gam knives hidden in their chests and prepared to attack. Among them was another person, a gentle and trustworthy disciple whom Wu Hua loved very much. How surprised to see your disciple become a different person. Some Cheng sect disciples suddenly turned to attack other fellow disciples as if they were possessed by demons. From the head of the sect to the elders, everyone was shocked because the wild screams of the students echoed everywhere. Li Piang, the owner of High Heaven Martial Academy, also took advantage of the time when no one was paying attention. Along with the other sect masters, this guy ordered all his subordinates to massacre the people of the Cheng sect. The martial artists of High Heaven Martial Academy attacked the Cheng sect with helpless expressions. The martial artists of the true martial sect brought by Zhou Gulho also cooperated, even though they didn't understand why. The martial artists of the true martial sect also screamed loudly. Oh Kyungwa's face turned white at the unexpected scene. Even though he brought the Thunder Clan disciples here, he did not think everything through. We'll change into this so quickly. While standing there, not knowing what to do, Hukam's voice suddenly reached my ears. What are you waiting for, idiot, don't attack yet. Oh Kyung-hwa, as if possessed by something, ordered Thunder Clan's disciples to attack forward. Hukam was also present at the top to conveniently observe. The participation of Thunder Clan turned this place into a chaos in the blink of an eye. The monster whose body was covered in black cloth was Hukam. He was really feeling very happy when he saw the tragedy created by himself. After completely controlling the minds of a few people like this, he will create internal division, and then he will push everything into chaos with rules. Big scale, the only thing left is to let them destroy each other. Without losing a drop of sweat or blood, how can you not be happy if you can handle it neatly? The events in front of Hukam right now seemed like it had become so bad that it was impossible to hold back. At the same time, the posthumous warriors were also on their way to Cheng sect. Just as they stepped near the mountain gate, suddenly crows came rushing in because the smell of blood from somewhere went straight into my nose. Kim Jiam-woo and his colleagues immediately raised their vigilance because these little demons were too noisy. My intuition told me that something was wrong. When that happened, they quickly ran to the place where the smell was coming from. This time the Golden Heaven Society did not have enough members because one person was currently lying in one place because he dared to tease Pyo Wol's roommate. Vo the Thunder Clan, High Heaven Martial Academy, and True Martial Sect were carrying out a general attack. Just stopping the other three forces from joining forces was difficult enough. To make matters worse, they also had to deal with enemies with an internal. True Master Wu Hua sat down and hugged True Master Mu Ryong, who was lying on the ground, while Qing Cheng sect martial artists were struggling to protect them. I don't understand why the Qing Cheng sect disciples today in the past, we cried and laughed together, but today they turned to killing their subordinates without any mercy. That's why they couldn't respond smoothly and of course led to heavy and unexpected losses. After seeing many people fall at the hands of their colleagues, they joined forces to fight back. The situation right now is extremely dangerous. Kim Jiamwoo's eyes widened in surprise, he didn't mind at all. But flew straight into the battlefield wanting to support Qing Cheng sect. After the lion's roar echoed, Kim Jiamwoo threw a punch like lightning into the space between Qing Cheng sect and ThunderClan. If this continues, martial artists will Qing Cheng sect will suffer extremely heavy losses, they must stop it before things get worse. Along with the loud explosion, a huge hole appeared on the ground, and debris appeared on the ground. Kicks flew out from the fighting side of the group of martial artists who were eager to fight. On one side, one Ga Young and Nung So Woon took turns dealing with the martial artists of High Heaven Martial Academy and True Martial Sect. While the other group of people still hesitant, Kim Jiamwoo quickly said to True Wu Hua. The three of them bowed and worshipped. This one, Kim Jiamwoo of the Golden Heaven Society. What exactly happened? Truly famous future preschoolers. Wu Hua wiped the sweat from his forehead and thanked the young teenagers for their help. The Qing Cheng sect elder also didn't know how to explain to the young people. This person clearly understands the situation. I don't know why they suddenly joined forces to attack. We can't deal with it. It seems like they have been hit by evil magic. Kim Jiamwoo swallowed a mouthful of dry saliva? Crying, the words of the Qing Cheng sect elder were of course not crazy talk. This absolutely cannot be a coincidence. Is it evil magic? His eyes suddenly turned to Chung Kyung who had collapsed nearby. There is something crawling in every muscle. The movement is so small that if you don't pay attention, you will not be able to detect it. A member of the Golden Heaven Society nodded and reaffirmed to the team. The leader is the ancient poison. Hearing this, real Wu Hua was the first to react because he was really shocked. The people who were rioting included Qing Cheng sect disciples, ThunderClan disciples and even High Heaven Martial Academy has a crazy expression. Oh Kyung Hwa who is stabbing nearby also has to stop and try to follow. He temporarily heads the ThunderClan and is Hugh Gam's loyal dog, but he doesn't know it. What method did that Egyptian mummy use? The original intention was just to cause trouble and make the Qing Cheng sect responsible, but things went too far. Kim Jiamwoo also seemed to understand the confused expression I must regret it. If it's really an ancient poison, then the mastermind is only nearby, we must find him to eliminate him immediately. We will be in charge of this place, quickly go find and deal with him. Nung So Woon spoke up. Temporarily for now, we can only do that because fighting more won't solve anything. Kim Jiamwoo radiates aura like a net and then uses his eyes to sweep around. One of the effects the purpose of supernatural mind work is to radiate qi to detect the existence of certain things. The net of the energy is as sensitive and dense as a spider's web, so even the slightest difference will immediately affect his senses, so he will definitely find what he wants. When the aura has spread to 15 feet, Kim Jiamwoo's eyes began to cross because he had found the murderer. He just felt it, got a sign that someone was lurking in the forest not far from here. There was no need to hesitate at all. Kim Jiamwoo immediately ran as fast as lightning to find and capture. The range was quite wide, so the way to narrow it was to let the poisoner had to make him show his face. With the shout, a powerful stream of energy shot out of his sword. The sword contained terrible sword energy that pierced the ancient tree as fast as lightning, creating a deadly slash. It's currently unknown where the perpetrator is specifically, but this classy sword move is helping Kim Jiamwoo track down the enemy the fastest. The sudden attack caused his waist to break. He was slashed in a long way, his hair erased like a spirit of revenge. Not giving the murderer time to smooth his hair and fix his clothes, Kim Ji-woo landed. Hyukim glanced at the other person. Then I was quite curious when that person found me. The sharp sword pointed straight at his face. Please tell me quickly what is the purpose of the person doing this. He has ruined the good things of others and still dares to raise his voice. Hyukim was extremely angry, so he didn't even bother to respond. Looking at the enemy who seemed very stubborn, Kim Ji-woo was lucky to radiate hot internal energy to show off his strength. If you hadn't refused to pay back, I have to take action to eliminate your evil magic. With the abundant amount of internal energy being transferred to the blade, I guess a very formidable blow is about to be struck. Time seems to stop moving, and each of his afterimages transformed magically to add weight to the weapon. With everything he had learned from the master, Kim Ji-woo slashed vertically, creating a giant airflow that destroyed everything ahead. The oppression pressing on the space makes Hyukim stuck in his position, unable to find a way to retreat. Since leaving Minor Thunder Temple, he has not experienced the experts in Wanderer, yet today while doing something important, he had the honor of receiving a beating from Kim Ji-woo. The mountain behind the Ching sect seemed about to be split in two by a slash filled with resentment. After the scene just finished their class debut, Kim Ji-woo silently observed to search for the murderer's body. Maybe he was wrong because right behind him the other guy's haunted voice rang out. Then at this moment, it was extremely scary, but Hyukim's movements were so fast that even Kim Ji-woo couldn't keep up. Leaving behind a polite question from a gentleman, Hyukim had disappeared from the range of capture. What was felt along the enemy's unique internal force was no longer there. If this guy is allowed to escape from Chengdu, the future consequences will surely be very unpredictable. Hyuk martial arts was not weak at all, but as soon as he saw that the situation was at a disadvantage, he retreated without hesitation. Maybe this guy is someone who values life more than martial artists' pride. That is the worst type of person. Kim Ji-woo tried to suppress his unpleasant mood and returned because there was still work to do. As soon as Hyukim disappeared, the martial artists attacking Ching sect gradually stabilized their mentality. The ancient poison is still effective, but the two Golden Heaven Society have suppressed it and conveniently brought in the new sect master of the Thunder Clan for further interrogation. The life and death status of the sect leader is still unclear, which is even more important, making real Wu Hua have to hold back rather than just slash his head off. His face is paler than a banana leaf, sweat drenched his shirt, making Oh Kyung-hwa's presence even more scared. Kim Ji-woo's eyes turned to look at Oh Kyung-hwa of ThunderClan. As long as he is not restrained, he will find out the truth about today's incident. Besides, he certainly knows something about Hyukim, so he won't say anything about it. Angry that he was beaten, he tried to hide his cowardice and shouted that he was just the victim. I didn't know anything. Being so used to this type of stubbornness, Kim Ji-woo didn't want to say anything. A lot. Do you really know? This is the last time I ask and I won't say 2 words. Seeing how this young man fought and slashed, gradually his mind lost control. Stumbling out loud. According to Oh Kyung-hwa, the person who poisoned the martial artists was Hyukim from Minor Thunder Temple. The story of a sect far away from Tibet existing in Chengdu is indeed a bit suspicious. Doubt. Minor Thunder Temple is the foundation of the Thunder Clan in Sichuan, so it is very possible that the wizard who defeated the ancient poison is one of them. The accompanying teammates in the Golden Heaven Society were quite curious, so Kim Ji-woo saw his face. The culprit briefly described. He was wrapped in cloth all over his body, his face was invisible, only 2 black and red eyes, his body was white and he still smelled like a rat. Later Kim Ji-woo wanted to confirm the last time this was what Oh Kyung-hwa said. He himself wasn't sure when suddenly a stream of blood filled his eyes, purple veins also appeared. This sign was just like the ones he saw. Prince Ching sect, if he hadn't been tied up, he would have pulled out his sword and slashed wildly. All 4 standing around were startled and scared, trying to get away, and his condition was already too serious. Face Oh Kyung-hwa became distorted and lost its vitality. Blood poured out of his mouth. His begging for help was drowned out by his throat narrowing. In the end, the Golden Heaven Society and Ching sect only knew the clues. Is the minor Thunder Temple, the prisoner is already dead. Quickly throwing the sword aside, a person hurriedly ran to check his body. His pulse was no longer beating, his body was cold, showing the cause died due to being tortured by ancient poison. It's not too difficult to realize, but does this raise even more suspicion that Minor Thunder Temple is really involved? That guy seems very suspicious, even at the same time. I don't believe it either. Looks like it won't be easy to find. Nung So Woon looked at the real Wu Hua and said, if you want other sects to help, you need to prove that Minor Thunder Temple people were involved, so sir. What will I do? The condition of the Ching Cheng sect is too poor from both economic and physical strength. The elder sighed and shook his head. Now the sect no longer has the strength to throw stones anymore. The disciples of the sect all suffered serious losses. I don't know how long it will take for those losses to gradually recover. The real Wu Hua had to decide to replace his senior brother. The sect no longer wants to be involved in this terrible problem. Many years before, the Ching Cheng sect spent resources to fight with the Ma sect and then were avenged by the death god Sishan. Maybe they were too tired. Although the future is quite gloomy, the elder still believes that one day someday Ching Cheng sect will return to its old glory. It's not too late for a gentleman to take revenge after 10 years. Today's revenge will definitely be repaid in the next 100 years and the humiliation suffered will be doubled. Kim Jianghu also doesn't want to force it. If he says so, I will respect it. I hope Ching Cheng sect quickly recovers. I also hope so, but no one knows when it will be. The real Wu Hua is the saddest. The atmosphere accelerated in the master's door, but my heart ached like tears in a flood of leeches. Wishing the best for the Ching Cheng sect Golden Heaven Society also had to go down the mountain. The hurt pride was now trampled on again. Maybe they felt like stopping was enough. Kim Jianghu has a straightforward personality and does not tolerate evil, so he planned to hunt down Hu Gam. The opponent is an athletic monster, manipulating other people's psychology at will. If you let him roam around outside the law, it will never end. That's a good thing to say, but that guy has been gone for a few hours now, so where can he get any information? Through the bloodstains left behind, we can see that the wound is quite serious, so how can a normal doctor treat it? Also from this small clue, the group plans to go to Chengdu Center. If it's too difficult, you need to ask for help from the ignoble clan. This job will be directly assigned to Nung So Woon, whose superior flying talent will be easily traced from those two places. The other person is also not free. Sitting around gossiping should proactively come up with backup plans. I have to go talk to Lee Soha and her uncle and then cooperate. I'm sure the boss will help. Just know that for now. Kim Jianghu also has his own plans but hasn't said it yet. This case probably doesn't benefit us at all. That's okay because it won't happen once or twice. Although it's a bit I'm stupid, but in this world, no one can compare to him. Maybe the reason people joined the Golden Heaven Society is because the guild master pulled them. Both members looked at Kim Jianghu with pride and admiration after what he had done. He devoted himself to the righteous path. For now, just to warm his stomach, the three walked quickly through the last steps of Ching Cheng sect and went straight to the center of Chengdu. Then it became dark at the small building, where Pyo Wol owns and is doing very well. Our male lead pushed the cart with the owner for 69 rounds, then temporarily stopped because there was urgent business. With a sad and happy look in his eyes, Suyong excitedly said goodbye to the general. Go carefully. She sent Pyo Wol away with the hope of meeting again as soon as possible because this man really makes people fall in love. Isn't that the light? Pyo Wol's eyes and Suyang's cheeks immediately turned red like a girl just falling in love for the first time. Even though her skin had been wrapped several times, every time she looked at Pyo Wol, her heart still sobbed incessantly. It's true that it's hard to find pure love for a courtesan, but she still can't stop her heart from beating fast because of that man. Pyo Wol left the Thousand Fragrance Pavilion and walked down the dark road. Normally deserted, it became even more gloomy when the night covered, but the male protagonist is so familiar with everything. Since he was still in that hellish state, he has adapted to life like this. He even feels more comfortable and at ease in the dark. During the day, when Pyo Wol's senses were amplified, he felt someone's eyes. Like a majestic mountain, Kim Jianghu was leaning against the far wall and looking towards the other side. Face. Pyo Wol slightly squinted his eyes because the current situation was not within his calculations. Your Excellency, Iron Blood martial artist Kim Ji-woo, I really don't know if this gentleman is the owner of the castle, the Thousand Fragrance Pavilion, or not. After the meeting with one Jie Young, the male lead always uses the Night Master's face every time he goes to the Thousand Fragrance Pavilion. This is to hide his true identity. Perhaps with martial arts senses it was not difficult for Kim Ji-woo to recognize the fake class. He asked for the help of Ignoble Clan and Yu Shin-peng to capture Hu Gam. Even though he turned Chengdu around, there was no news at all. Suddenly Kim Ji-woo felt nervous, every hair on his body stood up. This person nicknamed Night Master is so strong that he can overwhelm Zimin Pyong in just one move. He is also the owner of the Thousand Fragrance Pavilion, will of course have a significant influence on the courtesans. Kim Ji-woo appears cautious. His face was different last time and now he's still so handsome. What is his true face or what? A few more disguised ghost faces. In the darkness, those eyes lit up intensely. Pyo Wol did not shy away but chose to confront this person. Kim Ji-woo was certain that the appearance in front of him was not as his true identity. Pyo Wol no longer needs to hide his identity, because he feels that no matter how much he hides himself in front of Kim Ji-woo, it doesn't mean anything. His eyes fierce as a beast, hot as the sun. On the contrary, Pyo Wol's eyes stood still, not showing any inner emotions, but that made Kim Ji-woo's belief even stronger. Before coming here, I heard a story about a man. He was an assassin who liked to joke around with sects in Sichuan City. The first time I heard it, I didn't dare to believe it because it was too absurd. The story of the death god of Sichuan City has spread throughout the world. Indeed, that incident was the end of Ma sect and Ching Cheng sect. Pyo Wol is not very excited, so you are looking for that person. The two of them chatted comfortably like old friends. Kim Ji-woo really needs to know the assassin's true reputation, but after knowing it, what else will he do? I will fight and subdue him and also do anything to find out the cause of the story. Perhaps Pyo Wol heard these nonsense words, but the people who said them are all green. Now you can answer. Did I say that? Pyo Wol opened his eyes wide and looked at Kim Ji-woo. Perhaps he himself could not be so righteous even if he died and came back to life. He even wondered how he could live and express yourself so confidently. Are you Lim Quan Ok, musician, Night Master, the Thousand Fragrance Pavilion, or the assassin who caused Sichuan City to go through a bloody rain and wind? In the end, the first is who you really are. Kim Ji-woo is sure the man in front of him is the person he has been looking for a long time. If he denies any more, it would be ridiculous. Pyo Wol is not a 3-year-old child. The muscles on the male protagonist's face move little by little. His true appearance was revealed after the hat was taken off. Even in the dark, his flawless white skin and painted eyelashes made Kim Ji-woo surprised. This was really is this your true face? I've given you the answer, now it's time for you to tell me what your goal is. Kim Ji-woo pulled out a gold coin and quickly threw it at Pyo Wol with excited expressions. It's unbelievable that the two of them became so open, like people who have known each other for a long time but have never known each other very well. On the surface of the gold coin, there is an extremely delicate pattern of 9 dragons engraved for them. I see the craftsmanship is quite skilled. According to Kim Ji-woo, this is 9-headed dragon, but the male lead has never seen it to know the meaning. Being ignorant is not wrong, but it is wrong to not ask. Pyo Wol immediately wanted to learn about this thing. Recently we discovered people using that symbol. People who don't have any relationship or contact with each other still use it. We dive into various interests and grow quickly like mold. Different from the traditional Phi activities on the gypsy, because the traditional Phi activities on the gypsy value reputation and care about attention of others. But they completely do not care about the world's judgments, and what they need is only benefits. Truly new and very pragmatic. Pyo Wol burst out with an exclamation. Structure, is it the same as a businessman? That's right, there has never been such a group of people before. In their appearance, they are very similar to merchants, all blindly pursuing glory, but the difference is that they use force. I will ask you honestly if you belong to that group of people? This is the question that Kim Ji-woo wants to bring into focus. As soon as the other person flatly denies it, Iron Blood martial artist's face becomes bright as if he is waiting for that answer. If it were someone else, they wouldn't believe it right away, and Pyo Wol wants to know the reason. Based on your eyes, I don't believe that someone with eyes like yours would interact with others. Although we have met, but I would like to introduce myself again. I am Kim Jianghu. He clasped his hands together and confidently asked the real name of the most famous person in Sishan city. His appearance was not hidden. Even a little bit of him stimulated the mood and the words Pyo Wol came out of his mouth. So are we friends now? If so, you can give up your fake identity and become my true friend. Pyo Wol frowned for a moment. The more he looked, the more uncomfortable he became, so he immediately refused. His mood became worse. Even worse, how much did he know about him to want to be friends? The feeling of Kim Jianghu constantly attacking his territory made the male protagonist just want to strangle him to death. Even though he was rejected, I don't feel disappointed. Even though I don't know many things about you, I always trust my vision. Even though I know you're not a bad person and don't be rude, I really want to get help. There is an extremely dangerous person who has infiltrated Chengdu. He is hiding somewhere. If you leave him like that, something big will happen. Please help me find him. That's why I'm looking for him. To you. Pyo Wol didn't answer because he had no reason to agree to Kim Jianghu's request. At first it was good that he threw the coin back when everything was over. Can slowly drink and talk. Pyo Wol saw that Kim Jianghu's words were just noise, a noise as noisy as a snail. Then his body disappeared into the shadow, making the other person swallow his saliva regretfully. The clear mountains follow his back. Before coming here, he thoroughly investigated the bloody incident that happened in Sichuan. Most people only paid attention to the assassin named Pyo Wol who caused that disaster, but let's investigate to see why it happened like that. He is not simply a bloodthirsty demon, on the contrary, he is a victim. If I were in such a situation, I would probably do something wrong. That story. The deeper he dug into Pyo Wol's personality, the more he couldn't help but be surprised and then affirmed that the man was not a deeply evil person. Chengdu was immersed in darkness and appeared before his eyes. Night falls is also the time when everyone falls deeply into dreams. Dark red flows in the room filled with the scent of medicine. The owner of that red blood is an old doctor who died in a coma. His eyes rolled back completely. On top of that old doctor's head, there was a black body looking down at him. That was Hugh Cam. He didn't come here simply to treat his wounds. There are countless types of herbs in this house. He has been collecting for so long, there are rare herbs that are hard to find and everything Hugh Cam needs is here. At the same time, Zimin Pyong had just recovered a little and couldn't stand it. Go out to the wine hole. Kim Jianghu, Nung So Woon, Won Jie Young and Lee Soha have all set out to search for Hugh Cam. He also wants to go with them but the wound Pyo Wol left has not healed yet so I had to lock myself up in the inn like this forever. Zimin Pyong said some rude words because he refused to observe and evaluate the other person, so he made a mistake. But there is a price to pay. Because the mistake was too big, next time I will definitely have to take revenge. If possible, he wanted to run as fast as possible to take revenge on the Night Master immediately, but he knew that was just an impulsive action. Okay, what a bastard, quickly bring me some wine. If he attacks Pyo Wol in this state, he will definitely lose the battle again. Zimin Pyong loudly threatened to force the second son to bring some wine immediately. The intoxication was so intense that the anger did not calm down. On the contrary, the anger that was suppressed in the deepest part of his heart was rising. Perhaps it was because he consumed a large amount of alcohol in a short period of time that he quickly drunker than usual. Suddenly someone sat down next to Zimin Pyong. Only then did he feel something strange when his hand grabbed his hair and pressed it hard on the table. Zimin Pyong heard someone whispering strange things into his hand but he couldn't understand exactly what those words were, he just struggled. His eyes had lost focus due to the drunkenness and became even more blurred and confused. Unable to resist. In Hugh Cam's mouth, something very disgusting and smelly suddenly vomited out. He just kept moving without anyone noticing the chaos because he was invisible. Worse than Pyo Wol. Zimin Pyong had his mouth squeezed open because he really wanted to put that thing inside him. At this point only God can save that drunkard and only looked at his throat moving. The sounds of the chant resounded, making his mind feel like it was mesmerized. By fate, Hukum immediately found the puppet with an unstable mentality, Zimin Pyong. The aura of the ancient poison spreads outward and quickly spirals deep into the body. Just as Kim Ji-woo said, this person is extremely dangerous when he knows how to perform magic. Every time he does it, he will be in trouble. The victims will be controlled by their minds and actions. The inn where the Golden Heaven Society stayed is now filled with people infected with ancient poison. So the streets of Sichuan City continue to become chaotic, unstable, losing their minds. The martial artists manipulated by Hukum are frantically killing and destroying. If we have done something wrong, at least say so. The remaining merchants are trying to stop us. Spectacular flames shot up from different buildings as the crazy groups started fighting at the same time as if they had planned it in advance. There is a high possibility that Hukum is having to create a plan to make the East strike the West. To escape from this place. It's not strange, but it's hard to notice when the Golden Heaven Society and the ignoble clan are working hard but still don't see any light. The village outside the suburbs is probably also affected because every time Hukum passes by, it disappears immediately. Receiving the news from the people, Kim Ji-woo immediately came with his teammates to quell the riot in time. Just a second's delay can lead to murder. Also followed by a murder. The Ching sect's conflict with the clans had not ended long before it happened. The culprit that the guild master thought of was none other than Hukum of the Minor Thunder Temple. People who are inherently weak and have no force cannot withstand control. When humanity is lost, all objects in their hands are dangerous murder weapons. It's not enough that that bastard harassed the Ching sect, so why did he even come into Chengdu? Nung So-woon also wondered why Hukum hadn't appeared until now. I see the riot wasn't the real purpose. Maybe he had other intentions. The circle was getting narrower and he probably lost patience, so he poisoned her. While the two were trying to find a way to fix it, one Ga Young rushed over in a haphazard manner. She hugged her chest and tried to catch her breath and then informed the guild master that something big was going on. According to this person, Zimin Pyong was drunk and was coming to the Thousand Fragrance Pavilion to interfere. Without finishing the story, whatever happened, suddenly there was a scream near where the three were. Fires and explosions were happening everywhere. People were screaming loudly to save their lives and this direction was too familiar. Kim Ji-woo's face turned black when he recognized the guy. That bad teammate is doing depraved things. Golden Heaven Society followed the towering smoke and knew it was the Thousand Fragrance Pavilion. Having just gotten acquainted with the Night Master, Zimin Pyong personally squeezed the guild master's tea set. His hatred was reaching its climax because he was normally just as crazy as when he was poisoned. From prostitutes to housekeepers to bodyguards, they ran out to find buckets and basins to catch water to put out the fire. Inside that cruel and heartless fire, Suyong mansion owner was not as lucky as them. Zimin Pyong is a young martial artist with high expectations in the world. If he wants to cause a stir in Tanlao, no one can stop him. The family nicknamed the Little Fist King to destroy evil, but what was witnessed was the opposite. Zimin Pyong was still in the fire and wanted to fight with Suyong because he was too excited and couldn't help it. He groaned in confusion, asked Suyong how many times he had done it, but the top told the bottom that he couldn't listen due to the poison. He screamed loudly, revealing a distorted face, bloodshot eyes with veins, purple and blaming the owner for being arrogant. While unbuttoning each button on the beautiful woman, Kim Ji-woo and his two teammates kicked open the door and stepped in to stop him. But in Zimin Pyong's eyes now it was only Suyong and then he committed suicide. Murder, but this guy looked at the members of the Golden Heaven Society as if he didn't know him. Everyone recognized this appearance as being identical to the martial artists of the Ching sect from before. Regardless of whether he was poisoned or not, one Ga Young still wanted to take Zimin Pyong out because the fire was too big. They had to suppress Zimin Pyong to avoid injuring him and make him return to his original state. However, everyone only cares about Little Fist King's safety and doesn't care about how that woman lives or dies. It's a fatal mistake that will lead to a terrible chain. Kim Ji-woo thinks the victim probably just a normal prostitute. This person is not recruiting someone else. Please calm down and look at me. While trying to approach the idiot, when did he regain his consciousness? Zimin Pyong saw Suyong lying cold, a knife stuck in his chest, and screamed loudly without understanding anything. The dead person could not save his life. He only knew that this was not his fault. Anger invading the mind, the name Pyo Wol was nominated for the owner's death. Touching a man's reputation is like a double-edged sword. You can motivate them, but you can also turn them into monsters. Zimin Pyong's case is the second because he is inherently incompetent and also miserable. Playing without paying. And then it was time for the death sentence to be hung directly on this guy's neck. The cold wind that gave goosebumps was taking over everything when the death god Sishan was present. Suyong is the woman he loves the most. The thousand fragrance pavilion. She is not only beautiful but also smart and has classy bed skills. I guess Zimin Pyong will die, but I don't know how. The male lead's property was blown away by just one spark in the night. Those who were still alive could not put out the fire and had to watch it die. Fragments of the wall fell like rain. Who didn't know but thought there was a war? Looking at his fellow Golden Heaven Society disciples, Zimin Pyong still pretended to say that he was so bitter that he did this. Who did he think he was? If you look down on yourself, you will end up like this. The poison goes into your heart, liver, lungs, making that guy even more crazy, and no one dares to stop him. What else can you explain when Pyo Wol has already heard it? But sadly he was too late. Kim Ji-woo and Nung So-woon were startled and looked up. In their eyes appeared a straight silver line slashing into the air like a meteor passing through the sky. Night. With just a few blinks, those straight silver lines wrapped around Zimin Pyong's neck very gently. With one shot, Little Fist King's head was cut off as easily as Pyo Wol cutting tofu. Zimin Pyong's head fell down and rolled on the ground, making Kim Ji-woo and the others unable to believe their eyes. Scoundrel brother is the nickname that one Jae-young gave her, but now it's just a memory that she doesn't want to mention. The scream was in pain, but the arsonist's head had fallen out and was unable to answer them at this time. Okay. Nung So-woon looked at the body that had just collapsed and was so angry that he wanted to draw his sword and pretend to take revenge. Who are you and why did you act so cruelly against my senior brother? Not a single sound, not a single bit traces. Pyo Wol's white face appeared in the fire and he slowly pulled the knife out of Suyang's body. Her expression was pale, no longer pink, her whole body was now cold. Before being humiliated by Zimin Pyong, she ended her life. Pyo Wol also painfully thought back to each beautiful memory. Before leaving yesterday, Suyong thoughtfully admired her. That outstandingly beautiful man, master, let me ask if you have any wishes. Even though we have slept together for many nights, you still don't really understand what kind of person the night master is. Master always listens. Our wish, but you never told me your wish. Pyo Wol's life was originally simple, but unfortunately because of adversity he became like that. There was once the beggar boy has no support and no worries, he just wants to travel around the world. If he had a wish, the male protagonist would wish to live in a world where there is no more darkness and humidity. As for her, Star? You didn't tell me your wish before. Suyong also had an equally miserable situation. At the age of 13, she became a woman and was forever tied to this place full of gossip. If there is someone who gives her hope for life, it is Pyo Wol. My wish is so great that I don't even dare to cherish it. Since being wrapped in the Night Master's arms, where is Suyong? Thinking about something else, every day she just wants to please this man. If I could have the dream I wish to see his dream come true, then I would be happy. So, even if the male lead's dream is successful, he will no longer be able to see Suyong. He threw the dagger away and slowly hugged the lifeless body of the woman. There. Witnessing that tragic scene, Golden Heaven Society could only stay silent and wait. She wanted to protect my dream but disappeared before the world I wanted appeared? Don't worry. Now I understand that I am not suitable for what is called happiness. Pyo Wol raised his head to look at Kim Ji-woo. Congratulations for pulling me back to reality. This scene of Zimin Pyong's head and body splitting into two was too unbelievable, so even Kim Ji-woo, the most powerful in the world, had to take a while to accept his death. Whether you like him or hate him, he is a member of the Golden Heaven Society. Not only Nung So-woon, who normally likes him, but even one Jae-young, who dislikes him, is also extremely surprised by this incident. Love's sword falls from its sheath shouted loudly, and at this moment the revenge for the Golden Heaven Society member had just begun. The moon-like sword energy was released to obscure his vision. Nung So-woon immediately performed the 18 supreme techniques of the White Moon. In response to that display of power, Pyo Wol, as usual, only used basic but extremely dangerous techniques. In front of the powerful sword aura, dust and dirt rose up violently, obscuring his entire vision. Eyes, and in the middle of the dust and sand, something was rushing towards. The moon sword dance tried to stop Nung So-woon, but the sword aura like the white moon came along to attack Pyo Wol. Many flying knives flew. Through it came sharp threads that could turn this person's body into a piece of minced meat. Just avoid being a little late, that throwing knife would have cut his neck. Nung So-woon raised his vigilance and rushed forward. Came first. While her teammates were still shocked by the trajectory of that magic, Young immediately took action. She performed extremely flashy swordsmanship, as if proving that she was disciple of the sword sovereign Han Yu Cheon, one of the most famous people in the world. Immediately, the sword in his hand repelled the flying knife aimed at the back of Nung So-woon's neck. The flying knife moved extremely gracefully, just like a living creature. Aim straight at the target, guessing that this is the horse knife's gas. Connecting the gas and using it like a thread. This skill has never been done by any expert. The direction of his pursuit is it's just like a venomous snake. They only focus on the target and rush forward. Young can't predict which weak point the next attack will target. That's why both of them can't approach Pyo Wol. Just using the flying knife is enough to make them exhausted. To say it's impossible is a bit of an exaggeration because the male lead is just quietly enjoying his last moments with Soo-young. Taking advantage of the time the enemy was busy doing that, Nung So-woon risked his life through danger and approached. He still didn't know who the person in front was. He only understood that he needed to kill him due to his hatred. Zemin Pyong slashed his sword in a semicircle, shooting out a flash of light formed from the purest internal force. The performer also creates a very flexible posture that can be compared to an artist performing a vocal song. It looks very classy, but Pyo Wol has faced enemies that are even above this level. The surrounding soul-catching thread suddenly exists, creating a thin protective net, but it is very difficult to penetrate. From invisible to tangible only makes the opponent confused and unable to act accordingly. Calculation. Approaching at a closer range, Nung So-woon realized that the pain was coming from behind. Both of them probably didn't know that the closer they got, the more death would hang over their heads. Perhaps Nung So-woon already felt that this situation was not good, but it was a bit late. He stopped his movements and turned to remind Young to be careful not to turn into scraps of meat. There was something stuck in his ankle. Her legs then wrapped around her shins, but she absolutely didn't know. The ghost seemed to tear the space apart and rushed in, and the victim could only close her eyes and wait for death. Blood splattered everywhere. Even though the male protagonist only used more 2 soul-catching threads, but the effectiveness increased 10 times. At that moment, Young suddenly felt a sharp pain transmitting from her shoulder and screamed in pain.